Feminism.
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 Feminism is
The social,
economic,
And political.
equality
of all genders.
All genders.
all genders.
All genders.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Teresa Younger, and I'm the CEO and president of the Ms. Foundation for Women. On a more serious note, I am reminded of the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Thank you. How's that? Oh, okay. I can take your phone out, just in case you didn't hear that before. I am reminded of the Flint, Michigan water crisis. And I know that seems very far away sitting here in Brooklyn, but it reminds me of the importance of a promise that I made a year and a half ago when I began as CEO and president of the Ms. Foundation. And I said in that initial introduction to the feminist community that I was going to not only maintain the wells, I was going to build more wells. And it seems so appropriate when we think about Flint, Michigan, the importance of building those wells. You see, there are thousands and thousands of low-wage women, people of color, and immigrants in that community whose voices were totally silenced and marginalized in this process. They were not lifted up, they were ignored as they continued to raise concerns about what was happening. The events in Flint, Michigan are actually the reason why we do the work that we do at the Ms. Foundation. It is clear, given that story and many others, that people are being taken advantage of, and their voices must be heard. For the past 4 decades, over 40 years, the Ms. Foundation has been doing just that, giving voice to those whose voices have been silenced or marginalized, and to those populations that people oftentimes leave in the background in a conversation. The Ms. Foundation is the oldest women's foundation in the country. We believe that women are the solution to the problems that ail our communities, and that we actually just have to trust them to come up with the answers. So that we do that by providing them with resources, supports, and amplifying the voices of women, communities of color, and immigrant communities so that they can move closer to achieving equality for all. Today, our work is done in a variety of ways. Amongst them, we give grants to organizations. That's not a newfound thing. However, we have almost over 100 grantees throughout the United States. And that's why Flint, Michigan makes so much sense to us. But we don't just give money. We develop relationships and support those relationships as they go through. We build capacity. We look at policy and advocacy solutions. We hold solutions around communications. And we do that on a day-to-day basis in a really small way. About a year and a half ago, I became the president and CEO of the Ms. Foundation. It's a dream job that I never even knew existed. In reality, I was raised in North Dakota. Yes, there are black people in North Dakota. Stop it. All of you stop it. I'm an Air Force brat. And growing up, I actually knew more about farming than feminism and more about Girl Scouts than Gloria Steinem. But what I realized was that Gloria Steinem was actually planting the seeds in the ground to build grassroots movements and make them happen. And that Juliette Gordon-Low, the head of Girl Scouts, was actually one of the first feminists in the country as she broke down barriers to make things happen. It was a really amazing moment when I walked into that office. On the walls of our office over in 12 Metro Tech Center, which I didn't even know there was a 12 Metro Tech Center because I had never been to Brooklyn until I took this job. But on the wall, we have these words printed. And I think they're critical, and I read them every single day that I walk into my office. And those words are this: our work is guided by a vision of a safe and just world
where power and possibility are not limited by gender, race, class, sexual orientation, disability, or age. We believe in equity and inclusion are the cornerstones of a democracy in which the worth and dignity of every person is valued. Those are the words that sit on the wall that I walk into every single day. When I started at the Ms. Foundation, I read those words and I knew my own background. And though I didn't go to Flint, Michigan, I traveled around the country. I traveled 53,000 miles on a national listening tour to understand what was going to be next for the Ms. Foundation and what was going to be next for feminism in this country. So while I didn't go to Flint, I went to Jacksonville, Florida. I went to Visalia, California. I went to South Dakota. I can't remember where I went there, but I know I was there. I went to Minneapolis, Minnesota. I went to Dallas, Texas. I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I'm going to stop at Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I think that lines us up for the video that we just saw. Well, I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and every single stop that I went to, I only spoke with groups that were 20 or less, because it was a listening tour, and you can't listen to hundreds at the same time. And while I was in Albuquerque, we drove from Albuquerque, New Mexico, all the way down to Roswell, New Mexico. For those of you who are familiar with Roswell, New Mexico, it's where the aliens have come. Just so you know. And all of the streetlights tell us that. So in Roswell, New Mexico, we were at an event where an organization called Young Women United had actually passed legislation the year before to allow for basically a Family Medical Leave Act to apply to high school students who would leave school to have children and could come back and graduate on time. This was the one-year anniversary of that campaign. And so I came in and we were all waiting in a room, young parents and school board members and myself as a funder. And we were waiting, and in walks a woman with a child on her hip, and she whips out a piece of paper and she's shaking, and everybody says to me, "You should be really excited, she's so good." And I was waiting because we were late. And she whipped out a piece of paper and she said to us all, "Thank you so much for coming today. I'm so sorry I'm late. It's been an amazing year for me. I graduated from high school. I married the father of my child, and I started college. In fact, today I'm late because today was my first day of college and I stayed after to talk to my professor." And then she went on to tell a story about how important it is to advocate for the lives of women and girls, how important it is to make sure that you bring your story to the table and that those stories are supported. And more importantly, she said, as a funder, the Ms. Foundation gave us dollars so that the organization Young Women United dollars, so that we could actually pay for babysitters so we could come together and host our conversation, and gave us money so that we could get vouchers for the bus so that we could come and participate in what was going on. And that conversation in and of itself was a highlight to many conversations that I had as I traveled across the country. And I listened as I traveled. And amongst those listenings, I learned 4 key things that have lined us up for what's next at the Ms. Foundation. First off, I learned that feminism is alive and well in this country. People just need to figure out a definition that works for them. I also learned that people want a national, inclusive, diversified voice that ties together the issues that are affecting our lives. I learned that people want to be part of it, they just don't know what it is, and our lives are so busy they just need to be directed so they know where to go. And lastly, I learned that there's a big concern out there on the sustainability and succession planning for the nonprofit sector. So what we did, let me go to the campaign we just talked about. What we did and what's next for the Ms. Foundation and the work that we are doing, we are about amplifying and restructuring the conversation. We're about destructing the narrative that has been out there traditionally about what a feminist looks like and what is happening in the feminist community, and what feminism as a value is truly about. We did some polling work, and what we found was when we asked people if they defined as a feminist, they said no. 16% said no. And when we asked them if they believed in the social, political, and economic equality of all genders, they said yes. In fact, they quadrupled the number of people that said yes. That video is part of a campaign that we started called #MyFeminismIs. I invite you to take out your phones and respond to what your feminism is. #MyFeminismIs. And take a moment to think about who have been the feminists in your life. Who are the people that promote the social, political, and economic equality of all genders? You see, feminism isn't just about women. It is about the movement towards ensuring that both women and men have full equality in their lives. And however you define yourself, that is the direction that you go. We're looking at putting together a broad and inclusive movement that holds and brings everybody to the table. The next movement for the Ms. Foundation, the next movement for women's movement in this country is taking place at 12 Metro Tech Center, and it's taking place in Jacksonville, Florida, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in Dallas, Texas, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Movement takes place on the grassroots side, and that is what we are doing at the Ms. Foundation. And so I'll leave you with my favorite quote, which is not that feminism is the social, political, and economic equality of all genders, which should be my favorite quote, but rather it is an email that I got from a board member. And it came through my Facebook page, and the quote is this: "Be the kind of person that when your feet hit the ground in the morning, the devil says, 'Oh shit, she's up.'" Thank you so much.